Good Thursday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Hope you're having a great afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Plenty of Browns to talk about as mandatory mini camp wrapped up. They were out at First Energy Stadium, downtown Cleveland, wrapped things up, and now the off-season program will begin. We will talk with Hayden Grove. He was down at First Energy Stadium. We'll get his perspective. We begin by talking a little bit about the Deshaun Watson situation. This is from the Rich Eisen show on Peacock. Mike Florio talked about the Browns' move to both get Deshaun Watson and Deshaun's desire to clear his name.
Look, I think the Browns went into this with a very simple plan. We're going to take some short-term hits, PR. We're not going to have him available for some period of time. Long-term, we have a franchise quarterback for the next 10 years. At some point, this is going to be no different than it was for Ben Roethlisberger, who got suspended 6 games, reduced to 4. He had 2 complaints against him. They went to the Super Bowl that year that he served the suspension. Within a year or two, it was completely forgotten, like it had never even happened. And by the time he retires, you're an ass if you mention it. That's how deeply it faded into the rearview mirror. Well, that's not happening. It's getting worse, not better. He says he wants to clear his name. I don't think his name is ever getting cleared. Even if he goes 26 for 26 or 30 for 30 or more, as the case may be, there's too much out there. It's lingered too long, and it's spreading. And I think that's where the Browns miscalculated. I think you're right on the money on this. There are too many of these, and that's what I keep coming back to, Rich.
When you think of it, though, it was a much different time with Ben Roethlisberger. There wasn't social media as prevalent, and now everything seems instantaneous in terms of a news cycle due to social media. So you're comparing apples to oranges. Never say never as far as anything goes, especially when you're dealing with public perception. Stephen A. Smith from ESPN's First Take talked about who this ultimately rests with in terms of a Deshaun Watson suspension and what he expects from it.
But in the end, Roger Goodell is the commissioner, and he has the right to do that. And so people are going to look at him and they're going to say, with all of this stuff still pending, how can you let him play? That's why I'm afraid that Deshaun Watson is not going to be allowed to play this NFL season. I don't know.
You're right. The public is going to want full transparency.
The public's going to want full transparency, and I'm not wishing for it. I don't know his innocence or guilt. I know they say he's guilty. I know he proclaims that he is innocent.
Yep.
I don't know what the hell is going on, but I do know, since you are Roger Goodell and everybody is waiting for you to make a decision, and the world is watching. The world is watching. I don't think that Roger Goodell. It's not like these cases are going away. They're not going to go away this season. They're still going to be going on. I don't see how Roger Goodell is going to come to the conclusion you can step out on the football field this season. And that's the only thing that's the only conclusion I can draw based on Roger Goodell's reputation.
And in reference to that, this is from Pro Football Talk. A source has told Mike Florio the Players Association would appeal any potential lengthy suspension for Deshaun Watson and take aim at the league's handling of owners Daniel Snyder, Robert Kraft, and Jerry Jones. Snyder, the union will argue the punishment in light of his findings and potential recommendations of attorney Beth Wilkinson was weak and not fully endorsed. As to Kraft, the union will argue that Kraft received no punishment despite allegedly receiving massage that became a sexual encounter. And as to Jones, the union will argue that the league failed to investigate the voyeurism scandal involving former Cowboys PR chief Rich Dalrymple, including but not limited to the question of did Jones know when he knew and whether he knew Dalrymple was secretly recording Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. With that, let's welcome in Quincy Carrier. And Quincy, we talked a little bit pre-show. Nobody knows what's going on with this, but that gives you a snapshot into how the Players Association is viewing it, which we've talked about, how you deal with owners.
Yeah, and this is going to be one of the things I was wondering about. How hard is the Players Association willing to battle for Deshaun Watson, given what's against him? It seems like they're willing to go to full bat for him. Also, another thing to consider, the NFL, and I know people talk about it as people are going to be mad about whether Deshaun does not get suspended or does get suspended. But let's remember that the NFL rarely ever does things based on if people are going to get mad, right? Like, people have been mad at the NFL for years on decisions or lack of decisions that they have made, and that's never really factored in. What the NFL is going to do is what's in the best interest of the 32 owners, for better or worse, because those are the people who actually run the league. I know Roger Goodell is the commissioner, but he has to do what's in the best interest of those two guys. It's like a CEO to a board of directors in a company, right? Yeah, the CEO's in charge, but if the board of directors don't feel like he's living up to making sure that he's making the best decisions for them, it's not going to work out for it. So when it comes to that, what's in the best interest for the NFL owners is for this situation to go under the rug. Not saying that's what morally is the right decision, but what's in the best interest, if you look at this from a realistic point of view, is what's in the best interest for the owners. They don't want this thing to linger around because, as we mentioned, the Cowboys have a huge scandal going on. The Washington football team, now the Commanders, have a massive scandal going on along these lines, right? They don't want more of these things, right? Tony Busby is talking about adding the Houston Texans to the civil lawsuits, which means there's going to be discovery in that. And the NFLPA is not just talking about appealing the suspension, they're talking about taking this to court. So that's going to be more discovery for the NFL. What we have learned over the last couple of years with the John Gruden incident is the NFL owners want as little things to go to court and to go to discovery when it comes to them as possible, and they will act in that interest more than likely. So this, I don't know how many games this means it's going to be for Deshaun Watson, but I think people look at this, and rightfully so, from an emotional standpoint based on what they feel like Watson's going to get. But if we're talking about what's likely for Watson to get as a suspension, you have to factor in these things. And this is why the math on this is much more complicated than what people are making it out to be, and why we can't just keep, every time something comes out, doing the victory lap one way or the other with this whole Watson thing, because this is going to be a fluid situation for years to come.
Yep. And you're absolutely right. NFL wants this to go away as quickly as possible. Get it in the rearview mirror as quickly as you can. All right, mandatory minicamp wraps up for the Browns down at First Energy Stadium. And take a look. A little bit of concern is Denzel Ward, a lower leg injury. So sat down after doing some of the drills, went over, met with a trainer, and then ended up walking into the locker room, did not return. No word on the nature or the seriousness of the update. Never want to see that, though. Deshaun Watson, working with the offense, finds David Bell, who just keeps catching the football and impressing. Watson this time will find his newest favorite target, David Njoku. You can be sure those two will be hooking up. They wrap up this, and this is a really good sight. 50-yard field goal, Cade York showing off plenty of leg. And Quincy, it's good to see Deshaun Watson, the guys. I know it's not a lot. They were down at First Energy Stadium, and they were playing football. I can't wait till we can talk more about that.
Yeah. It's gonna be a long month and a half now where we're not really gonna have any type of football to talk about. But it's going to be fun once the season starts, just because whether or not Watson plays this year, I think this team still has the potential to be very good based on just what's on the roster and the strength of it. I mean, impact players all up and down that roster. As far as Denzel Ward almost getting hurt, hey man, just let him rest. You know what I mean? Like, he's gonna get on to his break soon. So if Denzel Ward has a 6-week injury, hey, look, I mean, he wasn't gonna do much until week one anyways, right? Like, how much do you need to figure out from Denzel Ward at this point of his career? You've already given him $70 million. You're pretty sure he could miss like most of camp, warm up for a week or two. He don't need to play any preseason games, right? Week one, just throw him out there. He can lock down somebody. So as far as Denzel goes, hey, at least they know about it. At least it's going to get treated. And maybe it will prevent something bigger down the line. And also, it ain't like Denzel needs to be out there every week. He's not proving anything anymore, right? Like, he's Denzel Ward. He's one of the best corners in this game. He can miss a couple weeks of practice. I think he'll be fine.
Pull out some of that orange helmet bubble wrap, put them in it, and pull them out when you need somebody shut down.
Yeah, look, if you go into Berea during this summer, just know, don't be mad when you see 21 on that bike, because that's the best place for him to be, because you can't get injured on that station. And that's all we need, right? We don't need him to play during the preseason. What does that help us with anything? we need him during the regular season. So the more he's on that bike, the more I will applaud this health and safety staff, because he's had lower extremity issues before. He's had soft tissue issues before. So, just don't need to use a lot of miles on him when you don't need to. And this is not a point where you need to use those miles on Denzel.
I'm with you. Wyatt Teller talked to the media and talked about what he has seen from the Browns' new quarterback, Deshaun Watson, so far.
Yeah, no, he's a athletic freak. He's hardworking. He comes in. He's professional. He works extremely hard. He's studying. You can tell that he cares about it. I know he wants to win games, and I'm thankful to have him in the backfield.
Do you feel any differently about this team after this minicamp than going into training camp the last 2 years?
Well, I've always been proud to be a Brown. I don't think I've ever waived on who this team is or the identity of it. There's a lot of great teams way before us that go to the Hall of Fame and kind of proved it yesterday that there's an identity here. And if you don't match that identity, you don't usually last long.
Quincy, I haven't heard anybody say anything but glowing things about Deshaun Watson, the teammate.
Yeah. Look, Deshaun, and to his credit, right, the issues with Deshaun Watson have to do with everything that he has done outside of the building as a football player, right? Like, this is not about who Deshaun is to his teammates, right? He has always been good at that stuff. That's why, when people were critical at the Browns of, the adult in the room comment, right, when it came to Baker Mayfield, that comment was more about Deshaun's going to be good at the building stuff. Deshaun's going to be good at the franchise quarterback stuff when it comes to the in the building stuff, right? He's always been that. At Clemson, he was that guy. In Houston, he was that guy, right? His teammates glow about him and how he operates and carries himself and how generous he is with his money to his teammates, right? That's not the issue with Deshaun Watson. He does all of the franchise quarterback stuff in the building as well as you would want him to. And that's kind of been his reputation. So it's no surprise that people are glowing about him because, again, the questions you have about Deshaun Watson have nothing to do with anything about that football field or the facility, right? Like, that has nothing to do with your questions about Deshaun Watson. That's never been in question with him.
Yep, I agree with you, and we'll get the answers to those coming up in a little bit here. All right, Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, the biggest quarterback competitions in the NFL. We'll talk about that, as well as is a Baker Mayfield trade imminent for the Browns. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. This is from CBS Sports. Training camp quarterback competitions across the NFL. Number 1, Mitchell Trubisky against Kenny Pickett. Number 2, Deshaun Watson versus the NFL. And number 3, Trey Lance versus Jimmy Garoppolo's shadow. So Quincy, when you look at that, I know the CBS Sports guys are making light of a little bit of it, but that's legit. If it is a shorter suspension and the Browns are not considered one of the better teams in the AFC, you're not being objective.
Yeah, definitely. the top training camp QB battle. Kenny Pickett versus Mitchell Trubisky. That's not the top of what I would call any situation, including the quarterback room, in my opinion. Like, I know some people are high on Kenny Pickett, but if you're choosing between Kenny Pickett and Mitchell Trubisky, you're not really choosing anything, right? Like, it's not really a choice. You're being stuck with whoever wins that competition, right? Because nobody wants either of those two guys.
Browns fans know about that kind of battle, though. We know about that kind of quarterback battle.
This is where I'm saying this is Steelers fans get mad at me when I bring this up. Well, what do you know about that? I know all about this, dog. I've seen Kelly Holcomb versus Tim Couch. I've seen Derek Anderson versus Brady Quinn. I have seen Brian Hoyer versus Johnny Manziel. I have seen Jason Campbell versus Brandon Whedon. Dog, this is all I know. And when I smell it, I'm just telling you, dog, that smell like that. And that's what Kenny Pickett and Mitchell Trubisky smell like. It smelled like them turds that we had up in here before Baker Mayfield, right? That's the one thing Baker stopped us from, is arguing about two dudes who ain't that good and ain't gonna do nothing for you, no matter who wins the battle, right? What was it, Jake Delhomme and Colt McCoy? Yeah. Remember that one? The offense got like 3 first downs in 4 weeks. That was like something that happened, right? It did not matter who won that quarterback competition, right? That is what I would say on that. So Deshaun Watson being in your quarterback competition versus any other situation that includes Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett, I'll take Deshaun Watson. The Browns would gladly take waiting 2 years for Deshaun Watson and maybe getting the last 3 and just paying for those 2 years versus Kenny Pickett and Mitchell Trubisky. They would take it over Baker Mayfield. They decided they were going to take it over Baker Mayfield, let alone Kenny Pickett and Mitchell Trubisky, both of which are not better than Baker Mayfield. That is wild to me. But yeah, it's people losing their minds sometimes. I don't know. But Kenny Pickett and Mitchell Trubisky, I just can't help but laugh. Like, now it's the Steelers, so this might ultimately work out for them because they just get lucky like this. But I know what that smell like. You know what that smell like, Dave. And everybody at home who's watched the Browns for more than 10 years knows what that quarterback competition smell like. And it smelled like pain, right? That's ultimately what it smells like. The 30th ranked offense on EPA and DVOA. That's what that quarterback competition smells like. It don't matter who wins it. It's going to be bad either way, right? Najee Harris is the real winner of that quarterback competition because that's who's getting the ball. Right, like, let's not act like anybody else is actually going to get the ball with Najee Harris in the Pittsburgh Steelers offense.
That was more painful when you went through those names than I thought it would be. All right,
I'm pretty sure I missed like 5 of them. I spared. You know what I mean?
I know you've done this on
I didn't bring up Kevin Hogan versus Cody Kessler, right? Like, that could have been one. We could throw in Deshaun Kaiser was in that quarterback battle eventually. All
right.
Brock Osweiler was thrown in there in camp. We got Nick Chubb out of it.
All right. You ranked these on your show, so take us through this. Where do Deshaun Watson and Baker Mayfield rank in the quarterback ranking system? You put a little spin on it, so take us through that and what you did.
Oh, yeah, with the ranking system. So I like to play spades, so I rank each quarterback out in a group of what kind of spade card would they have, right? And basically the ideal is if you have this quarterback, you would feel like you have this card in a game of spades, right? And there are you know how spades works. If you have spades, those beat everything. So a low spade's better than a face card. And I just rank the quarterbacks according to that.
And where'd you have Mayfield ranking, and where did you have Deshaun Watson ranked?
So Deshaun Watson, I said, was a face ace, right? Like, he just hasn't had that next level of success to get to the point where you could say he's one of those trump cards, right? One of those spades. Also with him, he's had tremendous seasons that haven't necessarily lent out to tremendous records on teams, right? When you look at a Lamar Jackson, every year he's played a full season. The Baltimore Ravens have been a playoff team and almost a contender, right? Tremendous record. That's why he was up there above him. If you look at a Joe Burrow, right? The one year he played a full season, the Bengals came in as what people thought was going to be a last place team and they went to the Super Bowl. You can't tell me he didn't elevate that roster, right? Those guys have proven that they can elevate a roster. Deshaun Watson, on the other hand, right now you're in a point where, hey, the roster does matter with him, right? Because if he goes to Atlanta and that roster was bad, the team's probably going to be bad, but he's going to be good. But if he comes to Cleveland where the roster's good, then he has an opportunity to reach some success. Again, that's why I said that he would be at that point. So I believe that was, 7th or 6th in the NFL that I had
6. Watson
ranked that. And when it came to Baker Mayfield, he's a big number card, right? Like, he's a card that he could win a hand if you play it right. But he's not going to necessarily be anything of a guarantee. Sometimes you throw out them big pips and they win. Sometimes you throw out them big pips and they get demolished, right? It just is what it is. And I think he was around 17 or 18 in the league. So, he's not the worst card you could get, but you're not counting on the book because you got him, if that makes sense to the audience.
Yep, we got you. All right, let me ask you this, and do you think a Baker Mayfield trade is imminent? And before you answer, let's take a look at this. This is from NFL Research, and they compared Baker Mayfield to Sam Darnold. And when we look at the tweets, 16 games prior to Baker being injured, you see it's pretty good. Passer rating is 100.6. 8 games after, and you saw it. Now when you compare it to Sam Darnold, touchdowns to interceptions, Mayfield 92-56, Darnold 54-52. Seasons with 20-plus touchdown passes, 3 for Mayfield, none for Darnold. Passer rating, 87.8 versus 76. And then 100-plus passer rating games, Baker with 20, Sam Darnold with 8. Do you think a trade is imminent? And if not, why are the Panthers hanging their hat on Sam Darnold?
I don't know if the question is hanging their hat on Sam Darnold as much as how much is it worth to get Baker Mayfield and win 3 more games, right? Because if you get Baker Mayfield, you're probably going to win 3 more games than what they would have won right now. But is that what you want to do as an organization? Now, Matt Rule will want to do that, right? I don't know how much sway he has in this conversation. But I also don't know what he feels about Baker Mayfield. Baker's one of those players that some people love and some people think it's terrible, right? Like, that's just, he's polarizing in that way. So I don't know what his feelings are with Baker. Apparently he's been warming up to him. But that's the question, right? Do you want to, because you can save your job if you go 500. So that would be the move you would make for Matt Rule. But if you're the Panthers front office, is going 500 really worth it when there's 2 quarterbacks in this draft that you would want to take over Baker Mayfield? That's the question, right? That's where you're left at. I don't know if this trade is as imminent as people want it to be, because we've heard about this trade forever and ain't nothing happened. And then the news dropped yesterday, and today it's pretty dry. So we'll see what happens with the Baker Mayfield trade. The leverage that the Browns have at this moment is that if you want to get Baker Mayfield into camp and ready for week 1, you got to trade for him. The Browns will cut him probably by September, right? They're not going to waste a roster spot on Baker Mayfield. So they will probably cut him in September. But that means you only get Baker Mayfield in September, which means you have to bring him along in your system for about 4 weeks before you can start him, right? Because you can't just bring him in cold. And that's going to be the dilemma with Baker Mayfield, right? If you want Baker Mayfield to start week 1, you got to trade for him, which means you got to eat some of that salary, which means you can't get the free pass. Now, most of the teams that are interested in Baker Mayfield, I believe are interested in him as a backup, right? That's Tampa Bay, teams like that. Those teams will wait till September. They have no problem because they know the Browns are going to cut him eventually. But when it comes to the Panthers, if you want him to start, you got to make the trade. That's the leverage. They have nobody else who's wanting to get Baker Mayfield right now from all reports. It's really just the Panthers. But if the Panthers sound like they want to start him week 1, it means you got to trade for him.
Fair enough. Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break. The weaknesses of all of the teams in the AFC North. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. Quincy, I know you've addressed this on your show. Do you think Perrion Winfrey can become the defensive rookie of the year this season?
Yeah, this is responding to a fan question I had on the show. And I think it would be very difficult for him to win Defensive Player of the Year, especially in a year where, two defensive linemen went number one overall. There's also, number one and two overall. And then also in the top five, there were two defensive backs. It's going to be difficult, right? I mean, Kyle Hamilton went 14th. Like, the amount of defensive talent that are at positions that get highlighted more than D tackle would be spectacular for Perrion to do that. Now, if Perrion does win Defensive Rookie of the Year, he might be closer to Aaron Donald than we think, but I just don't know how likely that is. I like Perrion a lot. I don't know if I'm going to go that far with it, but it would be very difficult given just the amount of defensive talent in this draft, and not just defensive talent, because he could ultimately have a great year. But, those edge rushers are going to pop more on a Defensive Rookie of the Year ballot. The DBs are going to pop more on a Defensive Rookie of the Year ballot. And you have two spectacular ones that came out this year, and Sauce Gardner, and I'm blanking on the kid's name from LSU, but he was spectacular his freshman year. And then you go to somebody like a Jordan Davis, who plays defensive tackle, but he's just one of the biggest physical freaks the NFL has seen come in quite a while. So he might do something that pops off on the eye test more to get Defensive Rookie of the Year. It's so hard to win it at that position, even when the class is not loaded at defense, and this class was loaded at defense.
Yeah, and you're thinking of Stingley, the kid from LSU.
Derek Stingley, yeah.
All right. I know you also kind of went through this. Take us through the areas, the weakest areas of each team in the AFC North when you look at them.
Yeah. So this is an interesting exercise, right? Because when you look at the Browns, one of their weaknesses would be probably along the offensive, not on the offensive line, but they have new pieces coming on that offensive line. We don't know how reliable as far as health goes Jack Conklin can be. We don't know how reliable as far as health goes Jedrick Wills can be. Both of those guys have had issues in the past staying on the field. And the Browns just aren't as deep there, right? We have Nick Harris at center now. We think he's going to be just as good, but he's replacing a very reliable starter in J.C. Treader. Even Wyatt Teller has missed games here, right? So the reliability of this offensive line is a little bit questionable. If they're healthy, they're going to be a great offensive line, but just worrying about that would be a concern there. Joe Bitonio is also getting up there in age. We don't know if injury issues could pop up, but it wouldn't be unforeseen for a guard who's over 35 or approaching over about 35 to start to have injury problems. Now, that's probably my one concern about the Browns. If I go to the Bengals, it would be similarly along that interior offensive line. I think they did a good job on the edges. Just the interior is still questionable, and that's where Joe Burrow struggles the most, is when he gets that pressure up the middle. And then if we go to the Baltimore Ravens, it's health, man. It's just those running backs that they're relying on have not been healthy. Lamar Jackson is coming back from what was technically a season-ending injury, but it was more or less just a sprained ankle. So we don't know what they're going to be like. And also, Ronnie Stanley has not played football in like 2 years. We don't know if he's Ronnie Stanley anymore, right? And if Ronnie Stanley is not Ronnie Stanley anymore, that offensive line is in trouble. And it's been trouble for the last 2 years when Ronnie Stanley has not been there. So that's a problem for the Baltimore Ravens. And if you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, they got problems all around that offense, right? Quarterback's an issue. Offensive line's an issue. Wide receiver consistency has been an issue at times, and now quarterback consistency adds on to that. Also, I want to say this: Pittsburgh has a really good defensive line. If you look at the rest of the roster outside the defensive line, there's Minka and it's not much on their defense, right? They don't have Joe Hayden anymore. They really have some duct tape pieces at DB, and the linebacking situation. I mean, on paper, it sounds great, right? Devin Bush and Miles Jack. But when you look at how those guys have performed over the last couple of years, it's not good, right? Those have been two of the worst linebackers as far as PFF's grading goes. And there's debate on how seriously you want to take that. But these have not been players that have been good the last 2 years by any metric, and that's their defense, right? So it's really just TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and then some good defensive tackles. But other than that, Pittsburgh is really bare. They don't really have much else. Now they're Pittsburgh, so I'm not going to predict they're going to be like 4-win team or anything like that. But they have some questionable holes in that roster.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we take a look at Pro Football Focus's tiers for defensive lines. We will also hear what Warren Sapp thinks about the Deshaun Watson situation. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. Let's take a look at Pro Football Focus tiers and rankings for the defensive lines for all of the teams in the NFL. Tier 1, elite. They have the Rams, the Commanders, the Packers, the Steelers, the Buccaneers, and then the 49ers. You go all the way down to Tier 4. Great edge duo, weak interior. And they have Raiders at 19, Browns at 20, Cowboys at 21. Fair, Quincy? I mean, the one thing is they're playing young guys on that interior, so they don't have a track record.
Yeah, and, I'm just going off of kind of faith here because last year we did a lot of screaming about this interior defensive line and ended up being fine. Not great by any means, but fine, right? And I think it'll probably be similarly here, right? I think Perrion slides in nicely. They're taking a gamble on Taven Bryant to be one of those guys that steps up. Maybe Tommy Togiai steps up. Maybe we finally see the Jordan Elliott we've been hoping to see for the last 3 years, right, this year. But yeah, you're gambling there on the inside. And I know how PFF does this. They're going to do it based on their grades. They're going to do it based on like weighing each individual piece equally. But that's not how defensive lines work. When you got Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney, you're going to have one of the better defensive lines in football because that's just how the defensive line works. You're just going to overpower people at some point, right? It's why Pittsburgh never has a bad defensive line because they have great edges with two great defensive line players. When you have that, a lot of the inside stuff can get figured out a lot easier. It's why it got figured out last year, right? Jadeveon and Myles were just playing at a high level, makes that a lot easier to figure out, right? It's like when the Cavs had Kyrie, Kevin Love, and LeBron. Made it a lot easier to get productive minutes out of J.R. Smith, right? You know what I mean? Like if having that amount of talent just makes other role players' lives easier. And that's ultimately what it's going to be. By the way, that championship Cavs team did absolutely start J.R. Smith. And I don't think people remember that. I don't think people think about J.R. Smith. NBA Finals, NBA champion starter. That just hit me. That really just hit me. All right, but nonetheless, yeah, it's going to make it easier. I get why PFF does it this way, but it's not necessarily going to be what shows up the most, right? Because if the Browns are the 20th best defensive line in football, that's ridiculous when they have Myles Garrett. Yeah. Just Myles Garrett alone puts you in the top 15. Yeah. That just is what it is.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I agree with you as far as Clowney and Garrett.
They got the Cowboys at 21 with Micah Parsons. You know what I mean? Like, what are they doing? You know what I mean? You got to factor this in. They also famously put TJ Watt on the second team on PFF behind Max Crosby. Sometimes PFF be doing their thing. Sometimes you just got to take it with a grain of salt.
Fair enough. All right, Kevin Stefanski talked about a guy that really has just come in and done everything you want. David Bell has dropped, I think he said, one pass through OTAs and minicamp. Here's Kevin Stefanski on how David Bell fits in.
Diligent worker, wants to be good at this, so you see him working. He's the guy that gets extra. He'll be in the facility at all hours, working real hard with Coach O'Shea to refine the game. He's a rookie, so he's got plenty of room to grow, and we'll have time to do that, but he's doing a nice job. He's working hard.
The other thing that was really interesting, Quincy, David Bell mentioned that they made him the locker mate of Deshaun Watson. You don't do that with a rookie unless you plan on him having a pretty significant role in your offense.
No, they got big plans for David Bell. They have a lot of high hopes for him at least, right? Now, as far as will he live up to that, it's looking good. Want to see him in pads, do this, the whole physical element of it. But if he looks like this in week 2 of camp, I feel pretty confident he's going to be a pretty productive player for you. But because all the questions about David Bell weren't about whether he can play football, it was about whether those skills translated right from the college game to the NFL game. If his skills are translating against his teammates, and he's playing against really good teammates, right, on his defense. So if that translates in camp when they have pads on, he's going to absolutely be what he looks like he is right now in camp, which is a really reliable, solid wide receiver. And that's the wide receiver. Those are the wide receivers that Deshaun Watson has made a lot of money with over the years, right? People forget DeAndre Hopkins is not this freak of an athlete at wide receiver, but he is really reliable and has tremendous hands and runs really dependable routes. And that's what Deshaun really thrived with. With him, it seems like David Bell's a similar connection with him. David Bell also has a bigger catch radius than what people think. Not an explosive athlete, but he just throws them arms up and he just, whatever touches his fingertips, he catches, which, you can have a tremendous catch radius, right? We've seen this with Braylon Edwards, where the catch radius is tremendous. That don't necessarily mean that it's going to be a catch radius, right? Because you got to catch the ball no matter how far you can stretch out. And sometimes that was an issue, right? Greg Little was another player that we can mention in that era, right? Where he had a tremendous potential catch radius, but sometimes he hits him right in the chest and he doesn't catch it. So that's a nice to know that that's not going to be an issue for David Bell. We've seen that ruin a lot of wide receivers. Deontay Johnson in Pittsburgh's another example of a guy who is a tremendous wide receiver who struggles a little bit with the receiving part of that whole description.
All right, before we let you go, take a listen to this. So this is Warren Sapp from Vlad TV talking about the Browns and signing Deshaun Watson.
You mean to tell me the Cleveland Browns, one of the original franchises, gave this man $230 million and they have no assurance that he will not be suspended? What am I missing here?
A lot of money.
No. What am I missing here?
Yeah, there should be a clause in there somewhere, right?
How do you sign up for this and you have no guarantees from him, the league, or nobody involved in this thing? And all of a sudden, it looked like it was dying down again. It looked like we was about to get, he went and met with the league, and now, oh my God, another one?
Listen, man, I'll be honest. This is what, happy endings with a massage? Is it really that big of a deal?
No, Vlad.
Is it really that big of a deal? Hold on. Look at Robert Kraft. Robert Kraft got caught for the same thing, right?
No, totally different. Robert Kraft went to a place that specialized in the tug and rub. And for some reason, the judge-sanctioned sting didn't catch him. But I guess that's what $1 billion in the National Football League. When you're an oligarch, it usually don't touch you. So.
And Quincy, there you have Warren Sapp kind of breaking it down for you and throwing in the Robert Kraft difference there for us.
I'm going to go a completely different direction with this. How crazy is it to look at Aaron Donald to be like, he's definitely better than Warren Sapp, right? Like, that is amazing that we can look at Aaron Donald and say that he's better than Warren Sapp. I don't know about that whole interview. I'm not going to even comment on anything that I heard on that. That was wild. But yeah, I'm going to just leave that at that. Warren Sapp has had some wild interviews, and if you look into Warren Sapp's history, I don't know that he's necessarily somebody who should be speaking very loudly in these moments. He's got caught up on a lot of situations that are not that dissimilar to what we're talking about here. But I'm going to just leave that one alone, Dave. Oh, you got anything for that?
I'm with you. I'm with you, Quincy. Quincy Carrier, as always, man. Appreciate the time and the insight. Make sure you watch Quincy's show as well. Google him, YouTube show. It always does a great job. Quincy, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks, man.
No problem.
All right, Quincy Carrier. Make sure you find him on YouTube, watch his show. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out on the side of the break. We welcome in Hayden Grove. Hayden out at the final day of mandatory minicamp. We'll get his perspective on it. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back talking Browns. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE, and the Browns announced training camp dates. So beginning July 30th, out in Berea at the Cross Country Mortgage Campus, there are 11 days that you can watch the Browns practice free, open to the public. You see the dates on the calendar, the games there with the Jaguars, the first one. But again, 11 free open practices beginning July 30th. At Cross Country Mortgage Campus. So training camp gets underway about 6 weeks or so. With that, let's welcome in Hayden Grove from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Hayden, you were out at First Energy Stadium earlier today. The Browns wrapped up mandatory minicamp. Next thing is training camp. They'll put the pads on and do some extensive football work. So everybody kind of looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think obviously, the mini camp's exciting because, the guys are back on the field and it's an opportunity to see guys playing football, but there's something different about when those pads go on. It's a different game. It's a different animal. So I think everybody's super excited to get to training camp. And we got like 5 weeks. So enjoy the time and it'll be here before you know it.
All right, you were out at all of the mini camp sessions. There were 3 of them kind of moved around today. The first one, or rather the last one at First Energy Stadium. Just some observations. What takeaways from what went on down there today?
Again, these guys are not going 100 miles an hour. They're just kind of taking their time getting ready for the season and getting ready for training camp. They don't want anybody to get hurt. Obviously, the takeaways from today were the first one, obviously, Denzel Ward left the field with a limp and was checked on by a trainer. Other than that, Deshaun Watson looked pretty sharp today, threw a couple touchdown passes in the red zone on 7-on-7s. But in the team drills, they're not going 100%. They're not even going like 75%, I would say. So it's really hard to gauge and to judge who's doing well. Like I said, that's why I can't wait for these guys to get the pads on. I can't wait for these guys to get going.
Yeah, and even Kevin Stefanski had said they're trying to take care of each other when the ball's in the air. They don't want they don't want the contact. They're trying to stay healthy for when it matters. All right, I know you tweeted this out. So Jadeveon Clowney, media availability today, and it's really interesting. So Jadeveon Clowney said, for the first time, offense played a role in where he decided to go in free agency. Said he was going to follow Deshaun Watson wherever he wanted to go. And then you also say, Bake's my guy. I like Bake, great person. But it's very interesting just how much of an effect and a draw Deshaun Watson is as far as people wanting to play on the team he's on.
Yeah, I mean, that was certainly the case with Jadeveon Clowney. Wanted to come to Cleveland, wanted to follow his guy who he's known for a long time with Houston. I can probably say that other guys followed suit. I mean, there are guys that definitely wanted to be here to play with Deshaun Watson. You want a quarterback that has that talent, and Deshaun certainly does. He has the ability to get the football down the field and to do so accurately. And so, yeah, I mean, everybody seems to believe that Deshaun Watson is a really, really talented football player, good teammate. And obviously, there is all the off the field stuff, and that's very important. But if we're just talking about football, there's nothing no reason for anyone to want to not play with him.
It's also very interesting because Clowney also kind of said that, Watson asked him about Cleveland, and he said it's a great place to play. The recommendation that Jadeveon Clowney gave the Browns could have ultimately been what, helped Deshaun decide that he was going to, in fact, approve that going to the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the $230 million
that's a little bit
played a little more of a role than Jadeveon Clowney's glowing review of Cleveland. But I agree. I mean, anybody who's been to Cleveland knows that it is a great place to play. The fans are incredible. The city has such passion for its football team. It's an extension of the community. It's truly a bastion of pride for the city of Cleveland. And, I think that's what's been so difficult about the Deshaun Watson thing is that, it's kind of a smear against the city. And for a lot of people, they think that Cleveland is, devoid of morals because of Deshaun Watson. They think that Cleveland is the football team is just it's basically not one you want to root for because of everything that's happened. So I hope that changes. I hope that things get better with Deshaun, and I hope that things get better with these victims, and I hope that things get better for everyone because it really just is a super tough situation.
So this is interesting. So one of your colleagues, cleveland.com, got an interview with Condoleezza Rice, a noted Browns fan, and her response was basically keep an open mind on the Deshaun Watson situation. She realizes these are very serious allegations, but see where we are in a couple of months. And that's really all you can ask. That's being ultimately fair. Find out, let everything come out, or as much as is going to come out, then make the decision. Keep an open mind. I think that's a great piece of advice by Condoleezza Rice.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I mean, I've tried to balance it as best as I can because, you're going to get people from both sides. If you tweet something positive about Deshaun, you're devoid of morals. If you tweet something negative about Deshaun, you're not fair and you're being biased because of all that stuff. And it's just, I think that the answer lies somewhere within. I want these women to feel better. I want them to not I don't want them to have to go through that trauma every day mentally. But at the same time, if there was something that happened and Deshaun was somehow innocent in all this, then he deserves that benefit of the doubt too. So I don't know. I just want to see you're right. I want to see how it ends up on both sides. Deshaun maintains his innocence, and in this country, you're innocent until proven guilty. So that's pretty much all I can do is wait and see what happens here.
Fair enough. Hayden Grove and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. A national sportscaster with his rankings of the top fan bases in the country. He's a New Yorker. We'll tell you who he had as the top fan base. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports for CLE. So this is from ESPN's First Take. Mad Dog Russo, longtime sports talk host, really a legend in New York, ranked the top fan bases, so the best sports fans in the country. Here is his top pick.
At number one, without any questions, it knows the kind of city it is. It's gritty. It doesn't pretend it's anything it isn't. The Cavs, they don't have a hockey, which bothers me, but still, the Cavs, the Guardians, and the Browns. 3WE in Cleveland. Pete Franklin, the founder of Sports Talk Radio. What a city this is. I live there in a minute. Larry Nance once told me, you know what, I don't like the cold weather, but I love this town. They're in its soul. Cleveland. By the way, the mistake, by the way, number one.
You have the
Not even debatable.
You have the Cleveland, the city of Cleveland,
yes,
as the number one fan base.
Absolutely.
You got to be crazy.
Oh, that's a great city.
God. I mean, this is an abomination.
No, it's not.
I mean, you have outdone yourself here.
No, you haven't.
Let me ask you.
That's a great list.
Hold on, first of all, it's horrible. It's a horrible list.
Two numbers for Stephen A. that says that. 455, it's number of consecutive sellouts, 0-16, and the fan base still supported that team. Argue that, Stephen A. You can't.
No, I grew up in Florida. My parents are from here, and my grandfather was a huge influence on me. He was my best friend for when I was growing up, and I was born into Cleveland. I was not born in Cleveland, but I was born into Cleveland. And having been an outsider and having kind of looked from afar, there is no doubt in my mind whatsoever that Cleveland is the best sports town there is. And that's the reason I'm here. That's the reason I do what I do, is because of the people and the pride that this city has in its sports and it has in its community. It's not just about sports. I think it's just about the pride that Cleveland has in itself. And Mad Dog's right. Cleveland doesn't pretend to be something it's not. We're not this glamorous city, but we have great people. We have shining qualities. We have a beautiful, just all around. It's a beautiful place to be. And like I said, having grown up in Florida where fans do not exist, there is no semblance of I guess there's a small faction of true Miami fans and all that, but it's basically a large collection of people from all over. And you get Yankees fans and Browns fans and Detroit Lions fans and just people from all over. So I think in Cleveland, it's a way of life. It's something that you're just born into and it's in your blood. So I truly believe that Mad Dog is 100% right. And I know that maybe I'm a little biased because I live here and I work here and I love it here. But I think that the way that Cleveland supports its teams through all of the hardship, through all of the garbage, through all of the tough times, I think it's a remarkable, remarkable thing. And it's, like I said, it's a piece of who we are.
Yeah, and I agree. And again, that's a New York perspective, so points to him for recognizing Cleveland. All right, let's take a listen to this. What should the expectations for the Browns be? This is from KJM on ESPN.
I think he needs to make them a perennial because they hadn't been a perennial since
ever.
No,
Bernie Kosar,
back in the day, back in the day they were perennial, but now Marty Schottenheimer or something like that.
Yeah.
But now just a perennial, just in it, beating up. Oh, they losing the AFC Championship, and they make it to the Super Bowl. Oh, they didn't win. Oh, they're in the wild card. They win the division. You know that sort
that's
of thing.
how I feel.
Yeah, they don't need to. I mean, it would be nice to get a Super Bowl, clearly, but it's something about a player in an organization that gets something that they never had before. It's almost like the Chargers. 56 years the Chargers have been in the National Football League. They've been to the playoffs 14 times, man.
If the Detroit Lions suddenly became a perennial powerhouse, that would be a success for them because the Lions never win in the play. Never get to the playoffs, never win.
And again, I get the thought process, and there's an entire generation that doesn't realize Browns used to be a powerhouse, and I covered those teams. That's how old I am. But, yeah, this town goes crazy when its football team is good. You got a little bit of a taste of it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my grandfather I taught me all about it. I mean, he told me the days of Dante Lavelli and Gene Dickerson and all these guys. I mean, it's Otto Graham and Jim Brown and Leroy Kelly, and they were the class of the NFL, and Cleveland was the class of the America. And things change and evolve, but I think that Keyshawn's exactly right. You want to become, for lack of they're a force to be reckoned with every year, no matter what the talent level is. They always win divisions. They've won Super Bowls. They've been everything that Cleveland hasn't been since 1999. So I think the tide is starting to turn, and I think we saw that a couple of years ago when the Browns beat them into the playoffs and beat them to get into the playoffs. And I think it's going to be a good rivalry going forward. I think that Cleveland wants to be the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is exactly what they should be.
All right, before I let you go, we're used to deciphering some social media cryptic messages. We've got one for you. This is from Joe Burrow, quarterback of the Bengals. My spidey sense is starting to tingle, is what Joe Burrow has said. And then Odell Beckham Jr. responds with the one. So let me ask you, do you think Odell Beckham Jr. is headed to the Bengals? And if so, man, look at that passing attack. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and Odell Beckham Jr., and you got three of them that are former LSU Tigers.
Yeah, I would say that would be a strong receiving group, and I would say that they got that LSU connection. And Odell would love to get some revenge on the Cleveland Browns, who, for lack of it, did not work out here. So, yeah, I mean, I could certainly see it. I don't know if he would love living in Cincinnati, but hey, if the football's good and he's working out and he's catching passes, then I don't see why not. So yeah, I could certainly see, certainly see Odell being a Cincinnati Bengal.
Well, the other thing is if you're Odell, you look for that elite quarterback, and Joe Burrow fits that bill pretty well.
I would say that he does. Yeah.
Let me ask you this: when you look at the Browns moving forward, when you get to training camp, what do you see? What's the most important thing that you want to see from the Browns in training camp?
Who their quarterback is. I think it's that easy. I want to see that if Deshaun's out there, they're going to be a good team. I don't think there's any doubt. If he's suspended for 4 to 6 games, I think you're looking at the playoffs. I think you're looking at a run. If he's not, I still think you could be looking at the playoffs because they're running attack and I think the defense is good. But I don't, to be honest with you, Dave, I don't care anymore about training camp. We've seen Baker Mayfield look like a bona fide Hall of Famer in training camp. We've seen the Browns defense look like the 85 Bears in training camp. I don't really need to see anything. I guess I want to see, I want to see what the young kids do, and I want to see how Deshaun fits in, and I want to see stuff like that. But I really don't care that much about how they look in training camp. I don't.
You're ready for week one. All right.
Yes, week one. Let's go.
Hayden Grove, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Hayden.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you.
All right, Hayden Grove, make sure you read him. Page of the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. See you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guests, Jack Dovin from the Orange and Brown Report, and G. Bush from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, as well as 92.3 The Fans, The Barber Shop. That's tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE. We'll see you then. Have a great night, everybody.